which basically you need to have your scientific goals completely outlined and decided before you begin to work on that. But we'll still go over like the general information regarding the STM just so that when y'all get to that point, you guys won't be too confused. Um and then taking a look at the requirements. I see the first couple of two are saying does not exceed 50 kilograms. It should say shall not exceed. I could put some more information on like the different wording, but everything else looks like it is worded well. Just those first two should be changed to shall not. Okay. And another thing that I do want to mention is that I see like system shall survive Martian environment for TBD years. Um, it's definitely going to be really difficult to have a mission like this survive several years. So you might want to scale back, um, considering that considering that um if y'all are going to be in a cave system, it's going to be really difficult to work with something like solar, which can allow for years of longevity. Whereas if your mission's in a cave, you're probably going to look more to like a battery operating system. And since batteries have limited power, obviously, um, then definitely you'll want to look into like probably like months just for that sort of time scale. Oops. Alrighty. Yeah, I think that this is a great start for all of your requirements. Nice. Are there Do you guys have any questions about the requirements section?
Could you give us a couple examples of proper requirements, or like for example, in the past, uh, when one of these were done, like what kind of like more creative requirements did a group have?
Yeah, so if you go to like I know that these aren't exact, but I think that I also uploaded some example PDRs where they list some requirements. Some of them don't go as in depth as we would have liked them to. Um, but there should be a folder where there are some example PDRs available where you can kind of read them. And then if you go into the resources section of the Discord, I posted a bunch of screenshots of some examples of requirements that weren't from the space. They were from Aiden's JPL team, and that has like just so many examples. I can also try to find more examples if you would like. Um, I can ask Luke if he has any other suggested resources or like suggested PDRs to reference from past semesters as well if y'all think that would be helpful.
Sure. We'll take any resources we can.
Yeah, definitely. I will go ahead and ask Luke and we will see. Okay. Okay, I just sent him a message, so we'll see when he gets back with an answer for more resources and stuff like that. The NASA Systems Engineering Handbook is also a really great tool to use as well, which I list in the resources section. Do you have any like specific kind of questions or just looking for more ideas basically?
More of a sort of trying to more find a path that we want to go. For example, like checking out past PDRs would be extremely helpful, or like, just like understanding the thought process behind writing out a requirement or an outline. That would pretty much help a lot.
Mhm. If you go to your MCA workspace folder, there at the top, there's a folder for example PDRs. Oh, but they're acting kind of funny still. Let me try to re-upload some of them. Okay, because the only one that's working is like the really long, the really long, scary one. Um, let's see. Okay. Okay, I'll try to re-upload the example ones in a minute. Just because it'll take a little bit of time to figure out what's going on with that. But I will have those other two example PDRs fixed, hopefully soon for the Team 5 and the Team 9 one. I guess for the time being, I can just or no, the files are too large for Discord. I guess I can shrink the files and share them that way as well. Um, so I'll have those put out just after the meeting is over if that sounds good. Um, and then yeah, looking over some other ideas are things like talking about so you all talk about like have sufficient power to survive. You'll definitely eventually want to list like what that sufficient power will be exactly. Um, and then in terms of like the surviving the Martian environment, that also includes things surviving things like the radiation that you might encounter as well as the temperature because the temperature is definitely going to be one of the main things where you'll want to have requirements listed for the temperature that your rover needs to stay within so that all of the instruments can still be viable depending on where you are. Um, and then also requirements for like landing a certain distance away from the cave and that kind of stuff. So, are there any questions about the mission concept outline? Okay, sick. So I think that now would be a good time for all of you to kind of talk about your mission concept outline and kind of definitely come to a decision about what sort of scientific objectives you want to do, because if you pull up the templates and you go to the STM template, that's kind of the next phase of the whole MCRR thing, and obviously you'll need like your NASA defined science goals and stuff like that, and then your three scientific objectives if you even want to have three. I think that there probably should be three, and I think you all won't have any issues coming up with three. And then there's also tabs for like examples of the STM as well, if you all want to use that. So I kind of just want to leave the floor open to all of you to kind of discuss your mission concept outline and kind of just to talk with one another.
All right, sounds good. So, does everyone have the mission outline or mission what was it? The brainstorming mission outline concept map thing open?
Yeah. I can share my screen if that would make it easier.
Sure, that would help.
Sweet. Alright, just let me know if you can see it.
Seems to be struggling a bit. I can't quite see it.
Darn it. Hold on. Let me try it again.
Actually, could you go to the in the folder? There's a science goals one. That one is the sort of more
I
up
have
to
that one
date one.
open too.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is currently our brainstorming document where we have been putting down most of our ideas of what we specifically want to do for this mission. So what we need to do now is decide on our main points we want to focus on, and then we're going to be able to write an outline and basically work more on our requirements after this. So if anyone else has like any other sort of brainstorming possible ideas or something like that, then you can put it on this document. And if you would like to add it, I can resend it back in general. This is the current Google Docs that was shared previously. So does anyone currently have any other ideas for this, or have something they would like to say, or prefer uh like one idea over the other for this document?
I mean, I think it would be cool to I like the first like goal that we have listed. I think we should for sure use that one.
We can choose multiple out of this list. If you mean like the searching for past or present evidence of life, That's like a overarching topic. However, each individual bullet is that kind of more specific. Like, for example, like biosignatures or ATP or amino acids. Those are evidences of previous life, and so if we try and focus on searching for those could be added to our requirements or our outline, basically.
Yeah, looking at everything that we have for these goals, I think like we created these goals based off of the other brainstorming file that we had, and I feel like most of these goals cover what the ideas that we all threw on the paper. I don't know if there's anything to add, but I think these four that we have is something we should definitely focus on.
True. So do you think like we could like start trying to write an outline just from like all this, or like I'm not really
As
sure
long
of the.
as long as everyone agrees on these four, and then maybe someone has any other ideas, but I think these four, in my opinion, are definitely things that we could start a mission statement with.
But yeah, that
I'm cool with these
reminds me.
4.
I like these 4 as well.
I think we should probably add one more for the other because one thing she said was that we have like temperature requirements or conditional requirements as well as we're trying to find the landing distance or so then we have to find the location of the case beforehand. So we might have to do a quick like external environmental search just to see that our rover like find where to place our project basically and see if our project is able to just live in that area. So we might have to. Should we add like a different category, just like safe landing or um how do I say this? Like correct situation for that rover or robot or whatever it is.
Do you think that would be a goal for the rover, or more so like a goal for the engineering design aspect?
I guess it's more of the engineering design, if I were to be fair. Is
That's more of a requirement.
sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, I was saying I agree with I think it was Brandon. Like I feel like that's more of a requirement for than like a goal. Because it
Okay,
has to work to do any of our other goals.
okay,
I
fair
don't know
enough.
if we have that down as or as one of our requirements, but if we don't, then we should definitely put something like that because I think that's a great idea.
We don't yet, but that won't be hard to add. I mean,
Okay,
there's not a whole lot of required yet, just kind of the basic ones until we figure out what exactly we want to do.
okay. So that works mostly for requirement set, and I agree with that. So then our current goal right now should just be to at least get like our idea of our outline or outline goal down. I'm not sure like how would we summarize all this in a paragraph or two?
Isabella, I think it was, had a paragraph on one of the documents we had, and I thought it looked pretty good. I forget what file that was on, but that was a pretty good example of what we could be writing for the mission statement.
Okay.
It's actually in like the MCRR Google Doc. It's just, I think it can be expanded, but I wasn't really sure what exactly we wanted to do. So I just kind of pulled stuff off of the science goals thing, and yeah, but it can be changed. I'm sure it can be improved.
Oh wait, that sounds. We could still we could still use this as a skeleton though. Is this the ID2 thing where it's like following the goals of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration?
I'm not really sure if we have to have that, but Brandon M started with that, so I thought I would just start with the same sentence. I don't know
Yeah.
if we actually have to have that though.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, I was just asking if that was the one you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's all good. Yeah, so then we can keep it as a sort of like this sort of outline. I put it at the bottom of the page, or copied it to the bottom of the page. So
I think as long as we have the overarching or the overarching science goals, which is like 1 through 4, or if we add any more, I think as long as we have those, we're good to go with writing our mission statement. And as we progress, we might change some of the bullet points of like what we want to, like the data we want to gather. We might take some away or add some, but I think for now we have a really good structure and that we could just get started on the writing.
sounds completely fine with me. So what should be our next point then? So you think that like we should kind of shove to the side a bit the outline statements, since these are basically all of our key ideas, and just start working on other things? Like if we can be considered done with this portion for now, we should probably start working more on the requirements and then just start jotting down things that are probably essential to this.
Yeah, I agree. We can definitely
I
start
agree
touching
too.
requirements.
Okay. So let's go over to requirements here. If yeah.
I'm working on it, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, one thing I think most of these are good so far. I think the wording for the rationale might have to be changed to be a bit more professional. But so far it does mostly look good for the most part. So then
Yeah, I think the wording for the rationale could be better.
it's all right. Yeah. So far they're all pretty good ideas though, so we can start with that. And underneath we could keep some notes of what we might want to add later. Like for example, like yeah, temperature for the rover requirements, or climate might be an issue we might have to consider, or terrain, landing distance, and location of caves. Landing distance can be related to can be like a sub kind of requirement of terrain and location of the caves itself. So we can add that, gives us like 3 or 4 more requirements that we can possibly add. I'm not Does anyone else have any sort of brainstorming ideas, or like any other like general ideas of a requirement though that could work with our thing?
I don't have any yet, but I'm gonna go like after this meeting and look at the example PDRs because Meg just said that they fixed them. I want to see what they have and see if there's any that we could either use for ourselves or like rework to what we're doing.
Sure, yeah. That also sounds good. I mean, we could add a couple things, I think, according to our current goals of our mission outline now. For example, like we are going to need instruments to find heat signatures or get samples somehow, or look at be able to traverse the terrain, or maybe pictures. That kind of stuff is what we start have thinking about for our requirements.
This is
However,
a this is a
yeah,
random idea requirement, but I remember them talking about, I think it was called planetary protection, and where if any microbial life was found, there'd have to be specific actions taken. Maybe we could add a requirement around that.
yeah, I think I think that's a good idea. I
I'd
think
have to
There
think of the
is
wording more.
one.
it might be the
There
bottom
is
one though.
one
If you
that
see
kind of.
number 12, yeah,
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I didn't have the chance to read through these yet. I was just looking off what I could see on this stream.
yeah, that's good. We'll take any ideas. I think we might have to emphasize on it more though, because we're missing certain parts of a couple that just need a bit more research, or more research. Might not be a bit. Um, but yeah, those kind of ideas work for us here. But I think right now we need these are basically all of the system and consumer requirements. What we're gonna need are some other potential like bigger requirements or potentially some sub requirements now. Hey, Meg, mind if I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Is it like a do mind or don't mind? You know? But so after I'm just kind of trying to understand how this process is gonna work. Like here we are with our mission outline basically almost done, and then our requirements draft. After the requirements draft and the STM, how is this team supposed to sort of progress to basically get to our end goal? Sort of like, are we gonna like start splitting into teams and then start designing things, or like I'm not really sure. I understand how this is like going forward for us. It's like all on paper, for example.
Yeah, so basically the first like this time up from the start of meeting teams to having the MCRR do is basically everybody works together at the same level and you all do the same things because these are all the foundational elements to your mission and they're going to make things go by way more smoothly when you have these outlined. And so as a team when you all come together to outline the mission outline, the requirements, the STM and all of the risks that you guys are going to be facing, then that brings everybody on the same page. So then when you submit your MCRR and then get feedback on it, all of you will basically also be deciding what roles you want to have, which there should be more information to come about that very soon. Um so then y'all will split into basically like science team and engineering team kind of, and then there will be some people that are also like associated with like this business section of the PDR as well. And so then y'all will be given like specific tasks within those. Like there will be like a physicist, there will be a biologist role, a chemist role, a electrical engineer, computer science role that need to be filled. And so y'all will get to talk to one another and see who is filling what roles. And then basically the you'll basically just follow the PDR guide essentially. And then things will be far more straightforward there with who is taking on which sections of the PDR, which sections of the PDR require communication between the science and engineering teams, all that kind of stuff. Does that kind of make sense?
Okay, and if I were to go a little further, like what exactly after that, like would be like start modeling stuff, researching more into like or like look more into like Mars resources, and like start designing, and then try and come up with like a product. And then after that, like would we like what would our final presentation be like those PDRs, for example, or like and how would we like go through like sort of writing that in time, for example?
Yeah, so just in terms of models, all of that is done through CAD work, or SolidWorks, or however y'all choose to do that. And then basically the PDR presentation is just you will be assigned 2 to 3 mentors who are going to review your PDR, and so you're gonna give, like, a whole presentation. It's like I think the cutoff is 40 minutes, 40 or 45 minutes, where if you go over that mark, they cut you off, but you basically just present your whole paper to them, and then they give you a bunch of feedback about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, one more thing, actually. So say we draft up our MCRR. Is there like a potential if we do finish it earlier, and then we like sort of turn that in? It's probably possible for it to get rejected, right? And then we could probably adjust or refix some of our statements in order to basically uh, return it in.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you're just going to be turning in like as complete of an MCRR as you can possibly get, and it's fine if there are TBDs. So don't worry about that. Um, but I will be reviewing everything, and then I'll be giving you guys detailed feedback and what to change for like the final draft that you'll put in your PDR.
Okay. So it'd be probably like better to at least get like a decent draft more than I guess more about the a bit more about the quantity than the quality to get more feedback to sort of fix it and get it more like the ideal version earlier.
Yeah, basically, it's like the idea is that you just really want the foundational groundwork so that all of you have stuff to focus on and build off of as a team collectively and are all on the same page. Um, so like it doesn't have to be 100% perfect or 100% polished. Like really just get your main ideas and goals out there and then that will be good enough.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, so far, you guys do have pretty good requirements listed, I think. I mean, it can definitely be expanded upon, but so far, it's definitely good to have. And then, y'all seem like you also have your science goals solidified, which I think is perfect for the next part, which is the STM template. So like I don't know if y'all want to open up your STM template now or kind of just hold off until your requirements are done. It's completely up to you, but um I think it would be good just to take a look at the STM together just to make sure that y'all don't have any like specific questions about it if that makes sense.
Yeah, would you well for I think first things first like could you dive a bit more into like the thought process for like thinking about a sub requirement or other system requirements in general?
Yeah, so I think Luke's PowerPoints are really great to have. So let me pull those up and then let me switch accounts. And then here I'm going to stream my screen. Let me go to here. Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So I think that the best thing to follow here is this kind of flow chart of how to think through it. Um, where it's like all of you already have these requirements listed. I think that y'all have a cost estimate requirement, right? Yeah. Um, let me close up QDR. Um, so basically, y'all already have this whole thing figured out here. So then the next thing is obviously like the system functional requirements, which is like the main things about like it will be able to traverse this form of terrain, survive like these levels of heat or radiation or whatever it may be. And then from there, so like for example, if you have a heat requirement saying that it must survive like negative 200 degrees uh I don't know, Fahrenheit to like 110 degrees Fahrenheit, for example, just random numbers. Then with like a subsist then like a sub requirement for that would be that you will have RHUs, and those RHUs are going to be constantly supplying X amount of watts for heat to maintain the system internal temperature. Does that kind of make sense?
Okay, so this chart is more like the thought process sort of going down it.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you recommend like the allocation portion of it? Like we have $300 million. How would we like start to think about like splitting it into like different portions or like spreading out that volume we have into smaller sub requirements?
Like how much you should allocate to each requirement, like your scientific instruments and all the engineering building and such.
Yeah, like if we had like a since we have like a max cost of 300 million, for example, like how I'd figure, or I mean, like if we have like a max volume of like 1.5 meters times 1.5 times 1.5, like how would we start to begin to think about like splitting this much for say like if we have wheels, like for a wheel or like a window or like a camera, for example.
Yeah, so how I would definitely start that is just going like down the list of things that are absolutely required, and then kind of taking those off of your budget. So like every person on the team is allotted at 80,000 salary, so then you just bump that off, and then obviously you're going to need a wheel design, and then you're going to, depending on the wheel and how you want it manufactured, whether that's in-house or outsourced, it's going to cost a different amount. So it's kind of hard to say, but you would definitely need to do like research into like how much it would be to like outsource the making of six wheels if you have like a rocker bogie system, you know? And then I think that there is general information on like how much like sheets of aluminum cost and stuff like that that you can easily look into.
Okay. In general, though, uh, I don't know if you have coached over teams previously, though, but do you know how, for example, how in depth their first requirements draft was? Like, did it go that far? For example, like sheets of aluminum, like that many wheels, or did it just like, you know, stop to a certain point where it would be getting too specific?
Oh yeah, it definitely stops at a certain point, like you know, like Aiden's examples that he shares are like from JPL, so of course they're going to be extremely detailed, you know? Whereas like this does not need to go too into like it doesn't need to go super into depth. This is like a this is an example of like a requirement section that somebody did, and then these are from a few years back, so things were a little bit different. but their requirements take up like a couple pages, like 3 pages. Um, and they definitely go pretty into depth about some of these things. Um, that like I think would be pretty good to add. Um, like if y'all needed a dust shield or something, which I don't know if I would anticipate that, but like you just basically want to have a requirement for like every component of your rover or robot essentially. Like at least one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine. But so say in the future then, like say we go for and turns out we don't need this or we like need actually something more. Are we allowed to add it on afterwards?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. You can at any point delete requirements or add requirements, or even in your STM, like if somebody decided like, hey, like, because this instrument here, this like this one's the easiest to say. Like if the NSS is too much actually, then you can just completely like delete the scientific objective and then possibly replace it with something else or just remove it entirely. That is totally fine. So like you're not setting everything in stone. This is just your guide to help.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. So yeah, I would definitely look at Luke's slides cuz he just like following this flowchart I think is super helpful in general about how to think about requirements. And then I also shared in the Discord some other resources on requirements about like how to write good requirements and how like some people make like what are some common mistakes, things like that. And the NASA Systems Engineering Handbook is a great tool to use for like how you would want to go about listing your requirements. I think that that's the best one for helping list requirements, like in terms of requirement number and parent requirement, child requirement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, and just while I have all of you on my screen, I definitely do just want to quickly talk about the STM just because it is on our agenda today. And so, in general, this is well, I guess I'll show you the template. So this is all of your templates. It doesn't need to exactly match um all of this, but the main things that you do want to match are these three objectives, and then you might not have like two instruments per objective. That's totally fine. Um, but this is definitely where you get more specific. And for instruments, I don't expect you all to have picked out like um really specific instruments and make sure that they work by the time that the MCRRs do. But it's definitely something to think about because whoever is on the science team is definitely going to need to really focus in on this. Um, and then obviously you'll relate it to your mission requirements, which should have your scientific goals should also be requirements essentially. Like if you are collecting samples, then you'll need a requirement for like if you're drilling a sample, like you'll need a requirement for how far are you going to drill, how many samples are you going to collect, the drill's performance in general, and then all of those will relate to these here if that makes sense. Um So I don't know if you all want to start working on the STM template now or just kind of focus on requirements. That's completely up to all of you. Any kind of thoughts or questions that are popping up as I'm showing this on the screen, the template? Anything, does anything look confusing or is it all pretty clear?
Um, for instruments performance, how or the observables, how are the kind of ranges decided?
So usually that is provided like if you do research on the instrument, which for almost all instruments you're going to find scientific articles out there about the kind of data they gather, and within that there will be information on the instrument itself for like what it is essentially its purpose. So I think that like looking up instruments that have been used on past missions to kind of collect data on the things that you all are searching for is a really good idea because then it gives you a sense of what the requirements might be for it. Um, but if you don't know, then you can always put TBD, and then I can help you guys research the instrument to figure out what those requirements would be.
Okay, thank.
Yeah. I think like a good example is like if you look up like cameras, like the nav cam and has cams used on like Perseverance or Curiosity.